Welcome to another session of Technology by Performix. I'm Ken Umansky, your host, and today we're going to explore more of the world of technology. My guest today is Eli Portnoy, the founder and CEO of BackEngine, an AI-driven platform that helps organizations accelerate customer feedback loops. With a BA from University of Pennsylvania and an MBA from Harvard, Eli has built and sold multiple successful tech companies. He began at Amazon before founding ThinkNear, which was acquired by Telnev for $22.5 billion, and later Sense 360 acquired by Medellin for around $44 million. These ventures established his expertise in leveraging data for actionable business insights. At BackEngine, Eli focuses on helping companies maintain the customer centricity of startups, even as they scale. He's recognized as a thought leader in technology and marketing. Beyond his companies, Eli serves as an executive fellow at Harvard Business School, mentors early-stage startups, and remains committed to advancing how businesses understand and serve their customers. Welcome, Eli. It's really great to have you today, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. So excited.
Yeah, it really is. And I think we're going to have a really great session. With your experience, I'm really looking forward to discussing how AI and how you're implementing it successfully and how you're basically implementing it successfully for your clients. So let's get started. You ready? How does your
I'm
company?
ready.
Oh, good. Most people say, yeah, I was born ready, but we're not going there. Uh, how does your company use technology to help businesses keep their customers happy and spot problems before they lead to lost clients?
Yeah, this is a problem that we're solving that I dealt with across every business that I've ever built. And the problem at its fundamental core is that when a business is small and you're just a few people in a room and you have a couple of customers, it's really easy to know everything that's going on with each of those customers. You're like, as the founder, you're probably on every conversation. But as the business starts to scale and you start to add more customers and you need to add more people on the team to help with those customers, and you start adding systems, and all of a sudden the distance between the founder, the CEO, the leadership team, and those customers starts to grow and grow and grow, which means that that interaction, that knowledge that you used to have about those customers starts to get weaker and weaker and weaker. And that's where trouble really starts to arise, because customers now maybe say some things that don't reach the right people, or start complaining about things, or want different features that don't end up getting built. And it's just because there's distance. And so what we're doing is we're building an AI tool that automatically looks through every single customer interaction, analyzes it using large language models, and finds the things that the different folks on the team need to see to make sure that that distance gets compressed, so that anything the CEO needs to know, they're aware of. Anything the product team needs to know, they're aware of. Anything the marketing team needs to know, they're aware of. And in that way, we make sure that no one is missing any critical feedback that might impact whether a customer is happy, not happy, stays, or leaves.
Yeah, that's really, really important. I've been head of a couple of companies, and you hate that call when the client calls and says, I'm not real happy. Boy, and it comes out of the clear blue. That's really the death knell in a lot of cases of a company or of a relationship, I should say. Um, you've got a lot of success stories. Give me a use case of where Back Engine really helped the company save a key customer relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of stories around saved relationships. We also have a whole bunch of stories around how we found incremental revenue for companies. But the best one probably comes down to a one of our customers. They sell software that helps businesses find um, basically like create better marketing materials. And they were working through a situation with a customer. They thought the customer was in a good place. Um, and they realized that actually there were all these signals that were coming out of them that were not healthy. So they kept looking at the usage data, and they were logging into the system a lot. They were using it a lot. But in the conversations with their team, they started to see a lot of feature requests followed by unhappiness, followed by just almost like despair, like they just stopped interacting with the team. And that led to directly to churn. And And once they started to identify that pattern, they started to look for it in other customers, and they were able to find it in a couple of other customers where it was almost like the same pattern. The customer was asking for stuff, they stopped getting those stuff, they started to express frustration, and then they stopped talking in general. And they were able to use that as a trigger to start engaging with that customer, and that speed to awareness, both that there's a pattern that leads to churn and also being alerted in real time when any customer starts looking like that pattern, allowed them to save multiple customers.
So do you use technology to try and figure out, the patterns that they're seeing so that they can kind of step in and say, okay, we've got to break this pattern?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I think about our product is we're really helping companies solve two specific issues. Issue number one is that because there's distance, they're not seeing a lot of things that are happening with their customers. Issue number two is because you have so many customers and so many conversations, the human mind, even if you had access to every single interaction, the human mind can't process and understand patterns across so much data. And so not only do we help companies and executives and people on the team see everything that's happening, we also help them identify the patterns in that. So whether it's churn risks or upsell opportunities or feature requests that people want or bugs that are causing problems, we're constantly mining all of the data and finding the things that a human probably wouldn't even be able to detect, even if they had access to all the data, and we're flagging it for the different teams and really helping them prioritize what do they need to spend their time on to make sure that they're driving the most value for their customers.
So do you build your own technology or do you go outside and partner?
It's mostly homegrown, so we're very lucky to have a very strong technical team, and they are building a lot of the core pieces of the product. But we definitely leverage other technologies. So we use a lot of the existing large language models. We use whatever we can use off the shelf, we'll incorporate. But if it's strategic, if it's something that we need to own, we'll build it. And then the product itself is it incorporates a lot of these tools, but we're building it all in house.
Well, business owners today are drinking from a fire hose for the most part, and they're juggling lots of different business priorities. What makes back engine worth their attention compared to other ways, they're trying to understand customers?
Yeah, and it's a really great question. And I think every business cares about their customers. So every business has some system that they're using to try and get this feedback. The problem with almost all of the ways that companies do it today is that they're very, very manual. Most of the time, the way it looks is you have a customer success manager or a sales or an AE that's talking to a customer. The customer says something important. They'll write it down in their CRM. You hope that someone else is reading it. Maybe they'll put it in Slack and message it to someone. Like these are very, very manual processes that take a lot of time and also mean that most of the stuff that customers are saying don't all the way make it to the people that need to act on it. And the patterns become very hard to identify. So with BackEngine, it saves the team a lot of time in terms of internal reporting and internal documentation. Executives and the people who need to act are seeing things in real time with a lot more clarity and depth, and you're able to identify the pattern. So, I mean, we're a new company. Clearly, businesses have been built without us, and they've done really well. But I think what BackEngine is doing is a huge accelerant that really solves across those three dimensions.
Right. Um, Companies grow from dozens to hundreds of customers. What challenges do they face in staying connected to their customer needs? And I think needs are really the key word there because a lot of people don't listen. They don't hear what their customers are saying and what their needs really are. How does Back Engine deal with that? How do they really identify that need that's not being fulfilled?
Yeah. I think one of the problems that we've identified is not that companies don't care or don't listen, it's that it's very hard to listen correctly because what ends up happening is you end up having a couple of big customers that complain a lot, and that we have this natural bias as people that we hear that complaint and we want to help them, and because we just have a whole bunch of like recency biases built into the way we think, we end up over um, over committing to the things that we hear loudly. And so the salesperson gets off a call with a prospect who's like, this is the most important thing in the world. And then they go and they become loud internally and they advocate for it. And all of a sudden, like the whole organization is reacting to one single customer that was very loud, and not the 37 other customers that asked for something that would benefit from something that maybe weren't as loud or didn't have an internal champion. And so what we find is that as companies grow, they still end up, it's still a collection of humans who are still have the same level of biases. And so all of a sudden you end up going down a whole bunch of wrong paths where you still think you're helping your customers, your still the intentions are still good, but because you don't have the pattern matching and the data to be able to get out of your own way, you end up doing and building and creating the wrong experiences, and uh, that ends up being very, very painful. And that's why I think you see so many big companies that lose sight of who their customer is. That, whether it's Kodak or Nokia or Blockbuster, or just like the list of examples of companies that had incredible prime positions and should have been able to dominate for decades and decades. Eventually they like lose sight of what they're actually trying to build. And it's not because their intentions are bad. It's not because they don't care about their customer. It's just because they don't have the right processes to collect and act on all of this feedback. And I think that's where BackEngine really helps. We turn all of this feedback into data, quantifiable data you can look at, and you can make really strong decisions without relying on a bunch of people telling you what they think and mixing in all of their biases into it.
Who in the organizations are you working with? On what level?
Yeah, that's probably the hardest thing about BackEngine, because in one of the things that I find fascinating is in most B2B businesses, there is no clear owner for customer feedback. There's typically what ends up happening about 53% of the time, companies basically say, hey, CS leader, you're closest to the customer, so you're going to own customer feedback. But they're not actually measured or gold or even hired on their ability to collect customer feedback. It's just something that they happen to do because they're closest to the customer. So they're not necessarily the perfect buyer for us, because while it's sort of in their domain, it's not really a focus for them. And then in 23% of B2B businesses, no one owns customer feedback. So there's no one for us to go to. What we found is that the person who cares most about the organization performing at the highest possible level is the CEO. And what we have found is that the CEO can then look down and say, hey, you are now the owner of customer feedback, work with BackEngine, and then we get this implemented. And it ends up being a huge benefit to whoever ends up owning customer feedback, because all of a sudden they go from whatever role they have to this strategic partner to the executive suite that now is relying on them to understand the customer, and they get the seat at the table. And we've seen people who take on the ownership of BackEngine now being invited to board meetings to present the voice of the customer there. And so it's like, it ends up being really good for them personally in their career and really great for the company. But it's something that we have to advocate for and do a lot of evangelizing and education to create that role.
I bet, because customer feedback is, people don't seem to pay a lot of attention to it until it's too late.
Yeah.
And then the top echelon of most companies get involved. So it's interesting who you actually work with. What's the quickest way for a business to start seeing value from BackEngine after implementing it?
Yeah, it's almost immediate, because the way we built the product is it's very push oriented. Rather than rely on people to come in and start looking for stuff and finding stuff, we're automatically capturing things and routing them and sending them to the right people. We have almost like an intelligent routing system that's finding the things that the different folks on the team need to see and getting it in front of them. The way, the example I use, the way I explain it is, imagine you go to a restaurant and you sit down for dinner, and the waiter comes over, the waitress comes over, and over the course of 2 hour dinner, you're very likely to share a lot of feedback. You might talk about what dish you liked and what dish was too salty, and you might talk about that the music was too loud, or that you really liked the desserts. Whatever it is, you're going to share a lot of feedback. And like in a B2B business, most restaurant waiters have multiple tables that they're waiting on, and there are multiple waiters at the restaurant. And if you're talking about a multi-site restaurant where they have multiple restaurants, you're talking about like you're multiplying the number of tables times the number of waiters times the number of stores, and all of a sudden, like, no one is hearing this feedback. It's just dying. And the way BackEngine works in this example, would be if there was a listening device that was hearing every time I said or you said any feedback, and it was automatically routing anything I say about the food or you say about the food straight into the kitchen, into the menu planning board so that the chef sees it. And anytime someone talks about service, it goes to the manager and so on and so forth. So it's very push oriented. We don't need anyone to come into the platform. We're going to push the stuff that the different teams need to see.
Well, thank you. We're out of time. The time goes really quickly. Thanks for helping us understand the value of systemic customer feedback and how you're using technology to achieve it. I didn't realize till I started looking at your company that with mature, timely customer feedback systems are 6.5 times more likely to outperform their competitors. I think that's really states a lot about what you're doing and the importance of it. I think you'll be getting some real positive feedback from my audience. And again, thank you. How can our listeners contact you if they have questions?
Yeah, the easiest way is they can email me. My email is eli@backengine.ai. You can also visit our website at backengine.ai. And you can find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Eli Portnoy. And I'm excited to hear from you.
Terrific. Thanks again, Eli. Don't miss the next episode of Technology when we'll discuss how cutting-edge technology is being implemented across many other industries and the results it's having with these companies. Again, remember to please contact Performix Business Solutions at performixbiz.com. If you need help with any technology challenge, large or small, Performix is the company you may want to call. Again, I'm your host, Ken Umansky, and until we meet again on another technology podcast, keep innovating.